Ari, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you on because you are the world's #1 authority on trust-based selling, and everybody sells, although some people wouldn't admit it. And you apparently really have this nailed down. What do you have for our audience today?
Well, my goal is to really help everyone shift their thinking away from their old sales conditioning, the old habits they've been doing unconsciously, and give them a whole new, fresh approach that can improve their performance, make them feel comfortable with selling, remove rejection, and not have to chase what I call ghosts anymore, and kind of that whole process that we all hate. And I think you're all going to love it.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, there's all kinds of, you've been around a long time, I've been around a long time, and there's all kinds of myths about sales. Uh, do you address that in what you teach and how you coach people?
Yeah, so I specialize in trust-based selling, and I think what might make sense, if you want, I can kind of tell the backstory behind the whole concept. We can back into all that myths and principles, give some new ideas and languaging. It'll be fun. That
Oh,
sounds good.
super. Super. Well, that'd be great. Let's go for it.
Sure. So about 20 years ago, I was a sales manager in a software company. We launched the first online website data collection tools. It's now called Google Analytics. It's a free tool. People mostly know what that is. Back then, actually, it was kind of a new product on websites, and fast growing business, 17 reps underneath me at the time. And the big opportunities came across my desk. They came through our website. And this one contact landed on my desk. I gave him a call back. Big company, multiple websites, big opportunity. If I close this one sale, it would double the revenue in one transaction. That's how big this was. So
Wow.
had a great call with the guy. He agreed to a conference call and demo so we can show him our product. They finally came Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock. Never forget it. Went in the conference room with my CEO, and I closed the door behind us. Big long conference table. In the middle of the table is one of the speaker phones, the kind of starship, spaceship ones, the corporate
Yeah.
ones. And so the clock, 4 o'clock, right on time. I hit the dial tone, dialed the number. He picks it up. He said, "Hey, Ari, how's it going?" "Good, good." And he says to me, "Ari, let us tell you who's with us here today in the room." And I was like, "Oh, wow, didn't know anybody else would be there." Next thing I hear is, "My name is Mike, I'm CEO." I was like, "Oh, this is a good person to have on the call." "My name is Chris, I'm head of global IT." This is even better. "My name is Julie, I'm head of marketing." Even better. I mean, everybody on this call was basically a decision maker. I mean, this is a call we hope to get as often as possible, right? Because we're all in one spot. And I didn't realize they'd all be there. So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be good." Then I introduced myself, and I began to give them a live demo over the web of one of their websites we collected in advance to show them all the data we can collect for them on the visitor behavior and all that. And this is early days, right? And I'm showing this to them, and I started these noises on the phone call, like, "Wow, this is great. This is amazing." And they start asking me all kinds of questions. How does it work? How do we install it? How does the technology work? I mean, they had the right kinds of questions. I had the right kinds of answers. There was so much chemistry on this phone call, Dave. It was like a love fest on the phone. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's just so much chemistry going back and forth. I'm sitting up, "Oh man, this is awesome. I'm answering questions, I'm trial closing, I'm answering objections. I'm doing everything I was taught to do by the sales gurus. I was enthusiastic, building relationships. I was doing all the techniques I was taught. I had the books on the shelf in my home, at home, I had the CDs in my car back then. And I was a student of selling, and the chemistry was awesome. They were saying to me, "This is great." Even my boss in the corner, he's like, "Ari, nice job, thumbs up," on my shoulder. He's calling for his next car he wants, about the bonus he knows is coming. He's like calling the dealership, like the wheels he wants and all that in the corner of the room. And this could not have been the perfect sales opportunity. An hour goes by, call comes to a close. My contact says to me, "Ari, this is great. This is what we want. We love this. Give us a call a couple of weeks, follow up with us, and we'll move this thing forward." I said to myself, "Oh, thank you, God. This is like the dream come true." And so I said my goodbyes. I took my arm and I reached for the speakerphone in the middle of the table. As I'm reaching for the phone to hit the off button, taking my thumb to hit the off button, got a complete accident. I say by divine intervention, my thumb hit the mute button instead of the off button. They were like right next to each other. And I hit the wrong button by accident, and a small click happened, and they thought I hung up the phone. That split second, a voice inside of me said, "Ari, go to the dark side. Be a fly on the wall. Go where no one's ever gone before in the world of selling. You got nothing to lose. And so I pulled my thumb back for a couple seconds. They started talking amongst themselves, thinking I had left the call. Now, this is not a trick question, but what would you imagine you would have heard on a call like that after a call we just had? What would you imagine they would have said?
Well, based on the buildup, I would have thought they were all positive and everything. But based on the way you've teed up the story, I'm thinking this is going to be nasty.
Well, you would expect things like, hey, sounds great. We should move forward. We should look, this is amazing. But let me tell you what they said verbatim, word for word. I'll never forget it. It's why we're all here today. What they said was this. They said, we're not going to go with him. Keep using him for more information. And make sure we shop someplace else cheaper. Knife and heart twist. I was in a state of shock. I snapped out of it, hit the off button, looked at the wall, and I said to myself, what did I do wrong? I did everything I was taught to do in sales. I was professional, I was enthusiastic, I was competent. And the first big epiphany hit me, and that was this. And I realized at that moment that somewhere along the way, it has become socially acceptable not to tell the truth to people who sell.
Well, that's true. And sometimes it's simply cultural. I knew a guy years ago and he had presented to some Japanese clients. I think they were with Microsoft. They were with Microsoft. They presented to some Japanese clients. And once again, same thing, all buy in, buy in, buy in. But they didn't tell the other group, the Japanese, that they had somebody in the room who spoke Japanese. So the Japanese were doing back talk all through the meeting in Japanese, but then converting in English. And all the things they heard in English was positive. But when he hung up closed out the meeting, he turned to the Japanese guy, he said, hey, that sounded great. Sounds like we're going to get the sale. And the guy who spoke Japanese just shook his head no, said, no, everything they said in Japanese was, they're not going to do this. You don't have a chance.
Well, I'll
So I
tell
think
you,
it can be cultural also. In your case, it wasn't
definitely.
cultural. It was, hey, we're just not going to be candid. We're not going to treat people. We're not going to practice the golden rule.
Yeah, it's okay to say things like, sounds good. Send me information. Oh, we're definitely interested. Wait. Send us a what? A proposal. Yeah. Send a proposal. And we get so excited.
Yeah.
We give us breadcrumbs and we assume they're going to buy something and then they really aren't. And that's just a terrible, horrible experience to be in. And I realized at that moment as well, I asked myself, why were they afraid to just tell me the truth?
Yeah.
And I realized the reason why is there's an invisible river of pressure that flows underneath the whole sales process pre-sale. And if you aren't aware of it consciously and removing it from the process, what happens is you can't build trust with someone where they feel comfortable telling you their truth. And that became our whole unlock the game trust-based selling process we developed 20 years ago, where the shift is not to focus anymore on the end goal of the sale, but to focus on building enough deep trust with someone, what I call a moment of vulnerability, where they feel comfortable telling you where you stand. So you don't have to chase people who are ghosts and never call you back. That's really the whole premise of what we're talking about today, how to make a breakthrough around that.
Yeah. No, it sounds really interesting. I'm curious what that river is that's flowing underneath.
We'll talk about that now. So the best way to do this is to kind of clean out the mental hard drive of our old conditioning of how we believe selling is. And I'll start with some of the classic sales myths. You probably recognize a few of these. One is a classic one, which is sales is a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole, the more contacts you make, the more hopefully sales you make, right? You know, we discover in this economy now, the way the world's changed, it's not about how many contacts you make anymore. It's about how deep you go on each conversation, not how good you are, how many contacts you make. That's kind of the first flip to kind of think about.
Yeah.
The second one is this concept the sale is lost at the end of the process. And I'm sure you've been there before. We had a deal pending. It all looked good. Did all your work in advance. At the end, it just kind of like fell through. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What we discovered now in this economy now, it's not about how many it's not about the sale being lost anymore at the end of the process. You know, the sale is now lost. It's now lost at the beginning of the process, not the end anymore. I'll kind of show you right now in a fun way. If someone calls your office tomorrow morning, you pick up the phone and you hear, "Hi, my name is, I'm with, we are a," what goes through your mind in about 3 seconds?
I just want to get off the call because I'm not buying today.
It's over at hello. And I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that your folks are all doing outbound calls. They might be, but I'm suggesting today is I'm going to build a case that says most of your folks are losing their opportunities, not at the end of the process. They're losing it where?
At the beginning.
At the beginning, not even aware of it. And
Yeah.
we'll bust that open today in an interesting way as well. And the last myth is the idea that rejection is part of the sales process, meaning you have to accept it. It's the old sales manager who said, "Hey, if you can't take a no, if you can't get beat up a little bit, you can't be tough enough to get out there and knock some doors down, you're not made for success." Well, guess what we figured out in our research? We figured out that rejection actually is triggered by certain things you say and do unconsciously that cause the other person to put their guard up and push back on you. And I'll walk through some of those now, which I think will blow some of your folks away and help them realize it's time for a shift, you know?
Oh yeah. I want to hear it because I never agreed with the scenario that you're only going to close, 1 in 20 or 1 in 10 contacts that you make. That's just too much work.
Yeah, you don't want to churn through a bunch of people to get a few at the end. That's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the core principles here. I'll give you some examples of what I mean by this. So one of our core principles is the idea of what we call always be diffusing pressure, taking the pressure, like you said earlier, out of the sales process. And how we do that is we use our mindset shift, and we have developed our own what we call trust-based languaging, our own phrases to use and activate this, not sales scripts, but natural languaging. Let me give you an example. Okay, let's do a classic example right now. Let's say you're on the phone with a new prospect, a new potential client. It's a first conversation, call's going well, good chemistry, could be a good fit. Call kind of comes to a close. Normally in sales, we're taught to do things like what? Say things like, "Hey, how about we go to the next step? Have a cup of coffee, have a demo." See, we're programmed to move people where?
Yeah. Keep moving
Forward,
them
right?
forward. Yeah.
That's right. But what happens if you attempt to move somebody forward and they aren't ready yet? What do you break right there at the beginning of your process with them?
Well, you put pressure on them unintentionally, and
You
then they're
break
not going to
trust.
like that.
Yeah, you break trust right at the beginning. And
Yeah.
so let's walk through our approach. Same scenario. Call's going well, good chemistry, could be a good fit. Call comes to an end. Rather than saying, "Hey, how about we move forward?" What we say instead is this. What we say is, "Where do you think we should go from here?" And
Yeah.
I'll
So
say it
you
again.
basically let them choose.
"Where do you think we should go from here?" Now, what that's doing is first is shifting the power to them. And usually when you say to somebody, "Where do you think we should go from here?" they're usually in a state of shock. They can't believe somebody in business would actually ask them what they want to do.
Yeah.
This is unheard of.
Yeah.
And when you say this to somebody, what usually happens is they say things like, I've got one more question. Or wait, what about this? You know what comes out all of a sudden? The truth. And
Yeah.
the truth is the new goal, not the sale. There is no sale unless you build enough trust with somebody for them to feel comfortable opening up to you in the beginning, versus giving you just enough breadcrumbs to get you excited in the hope somehow at the end you're going to get something. So this cleans out the whole hard drive of all that junk that we live with every day, chasing what I call ghosts, who give us indications of buying something but never do at the end. So this whole what we call trust-based languaging, I just gave you that phrase there, is what activates us in real time. Now, what did you notice when I said, "Where do you think we should go from here?" The way I just said that.
Well, it's very non-confrontational, and it's very open. It's kind of almost it's like almost I'm sure it's tailored very scientifically, very specifically. But it's almost like, well, great. What do you need next? How can I help you next? Type of thing. It's a servant attitude versus me saying, here's where we need to go next. Jump on, ride with me here. I know better than you.
It's void of any momentum.
Yeah.
Which is so contrarian to the whole sales industry, which says you've got to be enthusiastic to move things forward. You got to bring the guy. And I'm saying that's what's killing your sales. Because if you're enthusiastic with someone who doesn't trust you yet, what are they thinking? They're thinking all this guy cares about is his sale. So I'm going to drop a few bombs today that's going to really kind of shatter some old myths that hopefully people are open to kind of catching up to the new economy where things are at, because there's a lot going on out there that in many cases, most people are still what I call sleepwalking through their old sales frameworks and not catching up to the new customer's view of the world.
You know, Ari, I'm wondering, has any of your research found out, and forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, has any of your research found out that another reason that you want to remove this push is because if they truly have a need, they've already got push from their boss or from their self or their pain or their clients. And so many salespeople, and I agree with you, you don't see it very often, if at all, in sales training, where it's just like, hey, just, connect, build the relationship. And if they've got it, when they're ready to push, they're going to look to you because then they trust you.
See, what happens is we're so conditioned to worry about the next step during the conversation that we aren't 100% present with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they feel that from you a mile away. See, hearing is passive, listening is active. You might be a good listener with someone, but we all know if you come from the traditional model of selling, in the back of your brain, you're going, ooh, he's qualified. This looks good. How about we see, you're not focusing in on their world. And that's where the whole thing breaks down unconsciously right there at the beginning of the process. And you're right. This is about building a deep connection, not making the sale. There is no sale unless you do this first. And that's a whole shift in the mindset of the whole industry. Has been programmed and trained to focus on the end goal first.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happens next?
So the other core principle behind this is what I call getting to the truth with people, the truth. Now, what does that mean? What that means is having the other person feel comfortable revealing to you and telling you where they stand totally. So you're not guessing where they're at. Let me give you an example of this. Recently, someone called my office and they got through my team, got to me. I picked the phone up unscheduled and I hear Mr. Galper. I said, yes. The guy says, my name is John Johnson, change the name. I'm with XYZ company, big company. You recognize them, $1 billion company. And I'm with XYZ company. Look, we're looking to bring someone in to change our sales culture, our performance, to catch us up with the new economy. We're looking at you and 2 other people. We'd like to know, first of all, why should we go with you? Why are you the best? And give me your best sales pitch. He says this to me, all people in the world. So I'm a human being. They're a big company. I took a deep breath. I got centered in my approach. I lowered my voice and I proceeded to say this to him. What I said was this. I said, well, isn't that interesting? And I paused for a couple of seconds. There's more, don't worry. I just kind of gave it some space. And I said, over here at our company, we have a similar process to you where we ask you a few questions, gather information, and see if we're a good fit. And if we're a good fit, then we decide where to go from there. And I said to him, would you be open to that? Yeah. And then on the other side of the phone, I heard nothing, like dead silence. I'm like, oh my God, he's still there. Then like I could hear a pin drop. Then a breath came across the phone, like he just breathed, like his whole shoulders, his tension came down. He became human again. He took what I call the armor off of him. He became a human being. He lowers his voice and he says to me, okay, sure. What kind of questions do you have for me? Next thing I know, in about 5 minutes, I discover one, he's not a decision maker. Two, he has no budget. And three, he's just curious as to what I do. And off he went to some of my stuff online. I hung up the phone 5 minutes later. Now, what did my process there just save me months of?
Oh yeah, it saved you all kinds of time.
Chasing, following up. Actually, this drug in our bodies, and it's activated with inbound calls like that. You know what the drug is called? It's called hopium.
Opium.
You know the opium drug? You get that call, you're like, yeah, I got the call. You tell your husband and wife, guess what, honey? We got the call from that big company. This is the deal of the year. I'm so excited. You go to your team on the board. Big deal pending. You're like, woohoo! High five in the office. You're like, this is your major day. The hopium thing just goes through your whole body. You're just on this high. And then you call them back to follow up, and you get their voicemail. Like, what the? He's not. Oh my God. Then you go to your computer and you open your inbox and you say, hi, I'm writing you to what? To follow up on our conversation. And there's no response back. You're like, what? And the whole hopium detox is on you. You're like, and you just crash like, oh God, I hate the sales game. In fact, I'm going to ask your listeners and visitors and viewers right now to remove one keyword phrase forever from the vocabulary as it's recording and never, ever use it ever again in the rest of their sales life. And I'm going to share this with you right now. And for those who've been in sales for a long time, this might hurt just a bit. Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm going to ask everyone who's listening to this right now or watching this recording to never, ever again, after the recording, use this phrase again. And here it is. Never use the phrase follow up ever again as of today. Now, I bet if I asked your audience, how many of you are used to follow up in the last few weeks and call somebody and say, hi, I'm giving you follow up. What's the only industry in the world that uses the word follow up? Sales. And you're trying to be heart-centered and authentic and no pressure, but your languaging screams, hi, I'm giving you a call to move things where? Forward.
Yeah.
And their guard goes up. There's a few more classic ones from the 80s. Remember those classic ones? I'm giving you a call to what?
Oh, I don't know.
Check in. There's also one more. Remember the whole touch base one? Touch base, check in, follow up. These are like so classic, you know, that just screams where the stereotype, moving things forward, which is the last thing you want to do because people know it a mile away. So here's what you do instead. You replace the phrase follow up with, I'm giving you a call to see, or I'm writing you to see if you have any feedback on our previous conversation, any feedback on our last meeting, any feedback on our proposal. See, it's going backwards, not forwards.
Yeah.
You're going away from the sale, but that takes the pressure off. When you say to somebody, I'm just giving you a call, see if you have feedback on our last conversation. You're going to be shocked by what starts. They're going to start talking and talking and talking. You're like, oh my God, this guy Ari was right. The entire time, my whole career, I've been following up, which shuts them down. And here I change this one phrase and boom, it all comes out because we're so conditioned with our behaviors to focus on a yes or a no. So we're pre-programmed to use words that immediately connect us to that stereotype that everyone hates anyways. So if you notice in that call with that guy, what I said to him was, would you be open?
Yeah.
See, open replaces the word, would you be interested? Because open doesn't force a yes or a no. It creates a new space where they feel comfortable telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And that's a game changer for people who are stuck chasing ghosts, playing the numbers game, wondering why they're not converting anybody.
Yeah. No, it's a killer. So where do you go next there? You know, what's next?
Well, and what do you mean? What's next? And does that process you mean?
Well, yeah, because I mean, here I've got, you know, the initial conversation, and then I'm
Sure.
talking about, you know, I'm asking for feedback.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So the next, I'm actually working on a new book right now, coming out soon called The One Call Sale.
Ooh.
which is going to compress the multiple steps process that everyone's used to accepting as a normal way of doing business, compressing it into one conversation.
So
To get
what's
a
the
yes.
outcome of that conversation then? Because the one call
Right.
sale indicates you close a sale at the end of the call.
So it's not the one
Whereas,
call, it's not the one call close.
yeah,
Everyone
that's what I
says
was
that right away.
thinking.
It's the one call sale, which means this scenario applies when you have a qualified prospect and you have a scheduled call with them, not an outbound prospecting. We're talking about assuming you get a lead that comes your way that's
Yeah.
fairly qualified, right? And you have a scheduled call with them. That's the one call sale. And when the one call sale means you being 100% authentic with yourself and them and having a process to take them down where you onboard them on one conversation if they are a fit with you. If they're not, you disengage. But there is no next step, follow up, let's talk again, take care. I want to think about it. It all goes away because I figured out how to build enough trust with somebody on one consultation. It's almost like a doctor-patient relationship where the patient comes into the clinic. They say, my shoulder hurts. The doctor says, let me take a look. Is it over here? Like, oh, wow. I think you need an x-ray to really figure out what the problem here is. And then all of a sudden you show them the x-ray and they go, oh, wow. And that whole clarity on their problem is where the trust is created. See, doctors don't build relationships. Salespeople do. I've got a new bumper sticker I'm working on right now. You know, it's going to say, doctors don't do coffee. See, we're so conditioned to like rapport building, chumming it up. Hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. How are you? See, we've been so used to laying on thick pre-sales with people, and they know it's fake. No one, we were taught to believe they got to know us and like us before they buy from us. That's all from the sales gurus in the past. That's all blown up, man. They don't want to like you or get to know you. What they want is their problem solved.
Yeah.
Right. So you gotta, what I tell my clients is, this is going to sound crazy right now. Okay. I warn you in advance. Stop building relationships with people pre-sale. You build a relationship with someone post-sale, not pre-sale. That gets in the way of you doing a deep dive diagnostic and helping them get to the truth of what the real problem is. That's why doctors don't do it, because they ethically cannot prescribe a solution until they fully have you own the problem. They become your buddy first. Well, the social norms and the business norms gets all mixed together and they can't tell you the truth.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Makes perfect sense. So,
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you're just touching the tip of the iceberg here, Ari. You've been doing this for 20 years. You got multiple books out for those that are looking at the YouTube version of this baby. And now you're working on another one and a bumper sticker, which I'm sure takes a lot of time. So where do we go from here? Isn't that one of your lines? Where do we go from here? So, hey.
Love it. Great student.
Yeah.
Well, look, if this resonates with you and it intrigues you about the idea of making a breakthrough in your whole sales process, then just reach out to me on LinkedIn under my name, Ari Galper, connect, say hello, or just go to unlockthegame.com, just like it sounds. We have an intro course there for free. You can watch it if it resonates with you. We also have a free coaching session that we offer now. I'd challenge you to take that coaching session with us because you're going to experience something quite unusual. You're not going to make an offer. You're not going to be sold anything. And that's going to be a cool experience for you.
That's what I was thinking. If you take the coaching call, you get a lesson there automatically because you're taught in the coaching call how you should behave.
Exactly.
Yeah. You have nothing to lose, everything to gain.
People always are afraid of those calls, but they're going to get a sales pitch or be closed or a hidden agenda. But we walk what we teach. So click the free consultation button, come forward, and don't be afraid. Experience what it's like to have somebody else give you clarity on your problem, because clarity in itself is more valuable than solving the problem itself. Like going to the doctor when you say your shoulder hurts and he explains to you what the problem is, the relief in itself of knowing what the problem is the value. And the funny thing with the doctor is you pay him before your problem solved. He only gives you clarity first. And I teach the same model to help sales teams and entrepreneurs and consultants and advisors to build the doctor model out where they're being paid in advance of solving the problem through clarity.
Yeah, and I totally recommend it to the audience. I mean, give it a try. And you know, particularly when you're in sales, Ari, and I'll bring up a different point, but it's really, you only have, you know, we have 7 months left this year. 5 months are gone.
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that free call a year from now, why do you want to hold up being more successful? And I would, and you may not agree on this, but I would also suggest, as I said early on, everybody sells. I don't care whether you're trying to sell your spouse or your kids, or
Yeah.
even in the business world, I may be trying to sell the marketing department or the manufacturing group to do something. And I would argue, Ari, that, you know, everybody in a business position needs to know how to present something they want to do convincingly, and
You
that's
know,
selling.
I agree. You know what? You touched on something there briefly. You mentioned that this applies to all areas of your life. I mean, this really is trust-based communication. I'll quick story for you. I got a call recently from someone who'd been following me for a long time and said to me, Ari, you saved my marriage. I was like, what? I learned all your stuff that you teach, and I was on the edge of divorce, and I realized I wasn't listening. I was pushing my agenda. I was using
Yeah.
stuff that, and I finally learned how to listen to my wife, connect with her at a deep level, build trust with her. She learned how to communicate with me. Now we're back together again, and I'm not even in sales. I just realized I have been putting my agenda mentally ahead of the other person's, and that has changed all my communication with my kids, my wife,
Yeah.
and in business, and it changed my whole life because I realized I was the problem.
Yeah, and we're not trained this. And we are now in, I can't speak for you down under, but you're from the US, and I'm sure you realize the US for the most part right now has
Yes,
become a victim society,
totally.
where there are I think I can say there are a majority of people in the US today. It's sad. If not a majority, it's close,
Sure.
who believe consciously or subconsciously that they're the victim, and those other people are wrong and I'm right. And
Right.
so when they're trying to convince someone, they're driving their agenda.
Correct.
And if they could learn to step back like what you're teaching, it's it's just gonna, it can radically change their lives. And you know, I don't know about you, Ari. What do you, has your experience been the same? I find that we're really not that different at work than we are at home.
Well, what happens is when we leave home and go to work, we put what I call sales armor on. We put a defensive bubble around us to protect us from the bullets, from the rejection, from the pressure, from the tension, and then we change who we are. We become sort of this robotic model, and we lose our authenticity. And that loose authenticity is what your clients are looking for. They're looking for, it's funny about this because in your sales process, the whole time, they're not asking themselves, is this the right product for me? What they're asking themselves is, do I trust him? Do I trust him? Do I
Yeah.
trust him? They care less about your solution and more about you and how you are treating them.
Well, yeah, Zig Ziglar said it decades ago, you can't do a good deal with a bad guy. So, but you're a good guy. Good guy. Unlock the consulting game. You have unlockthegame.com, free coaching call. That's a training call for you. I encourage the audience to check it out or find you, Ari, on LinkedIn, wherever. And hey, nothing to lose, everything to gain. I want to thank you so much. This has been great.
I appreciate that. I've got a couple of shows coming out. I've got a new live streaming show called Stump the Guru, where you can jump on and throw me off the pedestal and show me you know more than me and challenge me. I've been around for 20 years, so I'm happy to take your scenario and answer it live. And I got a new show coming up called also the One Call Sales Show as well. So a lot of stuff happening. So keep an eye on me.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for coming and being on the show.
Thank you.